Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was a League Summoner. If you guys enjoyed this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. What the hell are you? Gritting his teeth in anger, not believing that he had been caught off guard so easily, Shalba Beelzebub asked as he struggled against the insanely strong grip of the demonic being that had just introduced itself as Frost. I am the undoing. The Darkin leaned his face toward Shalba and spoke in a low tone, one that sent chill down the descendant of the original Beelzebub's spine, as he stared into the glowing eyes of Frost. The corner of his lips curved up into a smirk, as he clenched his hands tighter around Shalba's skull, making him cry out in pain before gathering his demonic power and unleashing a swarm of bees, which created numerous magic circles around the Darkin. In the blinding flash of light, every magic circle was set off, generating an explosion that caused the area around them to rumble. Shalba was launched out of the cloud of smoke, crashing into the ground with his body and clothes smoking, but otherwise looked unharmed. Smirking sadistically, the descendant of the original Beelzebub looked up at the cloud of smoke in the air and expected to see Rost falling out of it, dead. When even after the smoke had dispersed, however, Rost couldn't be seen anywhere, and it was at that moment Shalba felt a presence behind him, causing him to snap around and see that it was none other than the Darkin, who was simply standing there looking at the claws of his hands, without a single scratch on his body. This will take some time getting used to. Rost spoke while chuckling darkly, as Shalba jumped back to create some distance between him and the Darkin. Now, where were we? Faster than Shalba could blink, Rost had dashed toward him and struck with his scythe. Shalba was able to dodge it at the last possible millisecond, and gathered his demonic power for a counterattack. Before he could do it, however, he was launched across the field by a fist straight to his face, sending him flying through the wall of the empty blue nexus, before crashing into the reviving fountain. On his hands and knees, the brown-haired devil tried to pick himself up, but Rost moved even faster than before, leaving a trail of dark energy behind him, as he appeared before Shalba once again, and slashed his scythe upward. The descendant of the original Beelzebub had no choice but to cast a defensive barrier around his body, but the tip of the darkened weapon simply pierced through it, shattering the spell like it was made of glass. Garrh. Shalba choked, coughing a mouthful of blood as Rost impaled his scythe through his torso. That, however, did not stop him from looking up at Rost, and giving him a hateful, murderous gaze, which the Darkin simply responded with a mocking smirk. You monster. I will show you the strength of Arg. With a gasp of shock, Shalba found himself once again being thrown across the battlefield, but this time all that was left of him was his upper half of his torso, as Rost grabbed his hair and pulled his scythe at opposite directions, after twisting the sharp edge to the side, tearing his body clean off with his torn organs dropping on the ground. Pitiful fool. Rost laughed as he shook Shalba's lower remain off of his scythe, while turning around to look at Shalba, whose eyes were staring directly at him with one last look of terror, before his body began to slowly disperse. You're not special. Just one of many. With that said, Rost swung his scythe, shaking off the blood and a small piece of organ of the devil hanging on his blade, before slowly turning around to face Rias and her group, who were all staring at him with a look of shock as Evelyn, Ari, Kaisa and Akali stood protectively in front of them. Splendid work there, Rost. Evelyn spoke up, breaking the uncomfortable silence between the two parties as she stepped forward. A bit too quick for my taste, but at least it got the job done. She stated playfully, before hardening her gaze and directed it toward the Darkin, asking in a cold, chilling tone, "Playtime's over. Let our summoner go, now." "Why? Can you see that I am just getting started?" Rost replied while chuckling darkly, his scythe glinting dangerously in his hand. "So be it then." Saying that, Kaisa put on her mask and dashed toward Rost with plasma emitting from her whole body, while firing a barrage of void blasts at the Darkin. Smirking, Rost swiped his blade to the side, and generated a violent gush of dark red energy to negate the shots, before shooting his hand out, and grabbing Kaisa by her neck, before she could continue on with another assault. Stabbing her lashers into the ground, Evelyn unleashed her shadow spikes toward Rost, forcing him to let go of Kaisa, and giving Akali the opening to leap over him, and throw her kunai at his back. Growling, the Darkin snapped around to attack her, but the rogue assassin had dropped her smoke bomb and disappeared into it. "Rias, you and your friends need to get out of here," Ari said quickly as she assisted her three friends, bombarding the Darkin with wave after wave of foxfires. "We cannot protect you and fight Rost at the same time." she said, before raising her hand and creating a barrier of foxfire, a skill that she had learned from Yusaka and the other kitsune yokai, when Ross suddenly rushed toward them at blinding speed, slowing him down just enough for Kaisa and Evelyn to go in and pull him back, their battle carrying to the field outside the blue base. How can we leave when Naruto is in danger? Ryuz asked as she took a step toward Ari along with the rest of her peerage. We can help. No, you cannot. Ari snapped at them, causing the crimson-haired heiress to take a step back from the nine-tailed fox champion in surprise. Ari took a deep breath before she said, Ryuz, you know Naruto. If any of you gets hurt here by Rost, he will surely blame himself. We have already lost Ashia. The Gumiho paused, her voice breaking as tears welled up in her eyes. The loss of Ashia seemed to hit her just as hard as it had hit them. Do you really want Naruto to be plunged even deeper in anger and despair? I understand. Nodding her head solemnly, the crimson-haired heiress then turned her head to look at Rost, who laughed maniacally as he slashed his scythe through Evelyn's torso, but the demoness seemed to have been waiting for him to do just that, as her form dispersed into shadow and wrapped around him, blinding his vision and allowing Akali and Kaisa to go in. But, can you really bring Naruto back? Isn't when a Darkin takes over their host's body, the host will? Ryuz asked with a shaking voice as she knew what would happen to a Darkin's host, having done some research on the Darkin when she found out that her boyfriend had been able to use their weapons. Don't say it. Ari shook her head and interrupted Ryuz before she could finish. There's still hope. He isn't responding, but I can still feel his presence in the telepathic link between us. The Gremory group looked at Ari with hope in their eyes as she continued also. Rost's eye on his weapon is still fully open, so his current form is still imperfect. He has yet to fully take over Naruto's body. We can still save him. Ryuz looked at the darkened side in Rost's hand and widened her eyes when she saw that Ari was right. The eye was still visible, and the pupil was moving back and forth glaring at the three members of the KDA. Enough. Rost roared and swung his scythe, sending Akali crashing through a tree, as the rogue assassin used her Kama to block his strike, being swallowed in a whirlwind of dark energy. He then grabbed Kaisa by her wings and threw her into Evelyn, who caught the Void Daughter with both arms in her lashers, before dashing toward them and swinging his scythe. Evelyn used her lashers to block the attack, holding it firmly above their head, and giving Kaisa the opening she needed to unleash a fully charged Void Blast. Surprise. But before the Daughter of the Void could do just that, Rost raised his other hand and showed them that he was holding Jin's pistol, the Whisper, which was emitting a dark red aura, as he channeled his energy into it. Pulling the trigger, the Darkin fired an empowered shot at Kaisa, penetrating her suit and piercing through her abdomen. The bullet then continued to travel upward and hit the left half of Evelyn's face, blowing it apart and causing her to unwrap her lasher around his side, before the Darkin sent her flying away with a roundhouse kick to the other side of her face. Keeping up with the momentum of his attack, Rost used his foot to knock Kaisa onto her back, and then stomped hard on her head, shattering her helmet before he kicked her away as well, sending both the Void Daughter and Agony's Embrace crashing into the concrete wall of the blue base, exploding violently before spiderweb cracks formed out from the points of impact. Leave. Kaisa. Ari cried before she turned her head back to Rost and snarled angrily at him. Wanna come and play with me, little fox? The Darkin chuckled while waving his hand tauntingly at her. Unleashing the full might of her power with all 9 tails appearing behind her, Ari dashed toward Rost, using her foxfires and Orb of Deception to attack him. The Darkin swung his scythe at her, but Ari's quick reflex and agility allowed her to maneuver between his swings and dodge even the deadliest of his strikes, annoying little vixen. Rost scoffed when Ari hit his face with a bolt of energy, before a magic circle appeared on the ground beneath her feet, bearing the crest of the Kitsune Yaokai clan. In a blinding flash of light, the Vastane transformed, taking on the form of a 9-tailed fox demon with white fur and the size of a small truck, shocking Rost and those who were watching before she shot forward and crashed into the Darkin, sending him stumbling back before sending out an intense wave of foxfire, far larger and more powerful than any foxfire attacks they had ever seen her performing. Rost, who was just as surprised as he had never seen Ari performing such technique, was swallowed whole into the flame. He was quick to recover, however, and leaped out of the wave of foxfire, his body smoking and burning at several places, but it did not take it long for them to heal up. Raising his hand, the Darkin summoned a second weapon, the Azakana Blade of Yon, dominating it the very second it fully materialized. The blade then enlarged itself to fit the Darkin's grip, and Rost then wielded it along with his scythe, becoming a tornado of destruction that hacked and slashed its way toward Ari, deflecting and dispersing her flame as she tried to defend herself. Seeing that her foxfire did very little to slow Ross down, the nine-tailed Gumiho had no choice but to leap back, retreating to avoid being cut into pieces, as the size of her fox demon form proved to be a major disadvantage against his fast and violent assault. He almost succeeded in cleaving her too, if Ari hadn't reverted back to her human form, and used a quick illusion spell to trick him, and avoid being hit by both of his weapons. The collie, who rejoined the battle, threw her calm at Ross from behind, causing the blade to stab into his shoulder, but the Darkin merely shrugged it off before continuing on with his assault. Evelyn, Kaisa, are you two alright? Riaz asked as she went over to Evelyn and Kaisa and helped them get back on their feet. Don't worry, I will be fine. Evelyn grumbled as she took Ria's hand and allowed the crimson-haired girl to pull her up. Her face began to regenerate in a similar manner to the phoenix with their injuries, even though half of it had been blown apart. I have been through worse. I will live. Kaisa said as she stood up, holding her abdomen as blood dripped from her mouth. Akeno then put her hands near Kaisa's bullet wound, and casted a healing spell to help the Void Daughter recover, but there was little that she could do to help her suit, which appeared to be bleeding just like her. Thank you. Fuck, how could I forget that Rost can use his host's abilities? Evelyn cursed loudly as she glared at Rost, who was now wielding in his other hand the Holy Sword Starfire spellblade alongside his scythe. Riaz and her group couldn't stop themselves from widening their eyes at the revelation, and it did not take it long for one like Kiba, who had spared a lot with Naruto, to see that the way Rost was wielding the Holy Blade, how he was moving, dodging and blocking Akali and Ari's attacks, were all Naruto's techniques. No wonder why he's even stronger than the last time I met him after he had taken over his host. Evelyn then continued in a serious tone, if we keep this on for too long, Ross might be able to start using Naruto's summoning ability, and we more or less screwed if he can do it. Who is he going to summon? Gaspar asked fearfully, but he and everyone else had already known the answer. Who do you think? Evelyn growled, and Riaz could feel a cold chill running down her spine, at the prospect of having to fight not one, but three Darkin, as Naruto's summoning ability would no doubt allow Ross to summon to his side his Darkin brothers, Atrox and Varus. If Ross alone was capable of such destruction, having just killed a descendant of the original Demon King Beelzebub, then there was no telling what would happen if the other two were also allowed to roam free in their world, especially Atrox. We need to beat him now, and we need to beat him fast. Easier said than done. Evelyn scoffed as Kaisa gave Akeno a nod of gratitude before she dashed away, rejoining Ari and Akali in their fight against Rost, who looked like he was just playing some kind of game with them, as he went through Naruto's arsenal, one after another. She's right though. The longer it is, the harder it will be for us and the more Naruto's life is shortened. But, how are we going to? We might be able to help you guys with that. Before Riaz could finish her question, the group heard a voice causing them to turn around to see two people walking toward them, a man with white hair and a woman with long black hair pulled back into a high ponytail with two long bangs framing her face. They both wore identical outfits, a uniform of some sort consisting of a green flak jacket over a dark blue, long-sleeved shirt with matching colored pants and sandals, but the man also donned a short-sleeved long white haori, closed in the front by a thin, orange robe, and was decorated by red flame-like motifs on the edges. In addition, their faces were hidden behind a pair of animal-styled porcelain masks. However, their appearances were not the surprising thing about them. Ashia-chan Ashia-senpai. Everyone cried out as the man walked toward them while carrying an unconscious person in his arms. That was none other than their friend little sister, Ashia Argento. With the only exception of Evelyn, who was gasping like a fish out of water while looking at the two masked people with a look of shock on her face, the group gathered around the girl, with Zenobia breaking down in tears of joy, as the masked man gently gave Ashia to her. We found her in the dimension gap. The man explained as he stepped back and stood next to the woman. The crystal she was trapped in kept her alive long enough for us to save her. She has lost consciousness due to the pressure of the place, but she's much stronger than she appears to be. Just give her some time and she will wake up soon. Why you saved her? Rhea sobbed as she gently stroked Ashia's hair, before turning her attention back to the two masked people, and lowering her head gratefully to them. Thank you. Thank you. For some reason though, Riaz couldn't help but feel something awfully familiar about them, but couldn't quite place her finger around it. But who are you? Zenobia asked as she held Ashia tightly in her arms, not wanting to let her best friend go again. Why did you save her? That's not important right now. The woman answered while shaking her head. All that you need to know is that we are your friends, and we are here to help. She then turned her attention back to her companion, who seemed to be observing the fight between Rost and Ari, Kai's and Akali in a calm manner. Not only was Rost using the Wuju technique Highlander that Naruto had mastered under the teaching of Master Yi to increase his speed, but his scythe was also leaving arcs of fire in the air, as he swung it at the three female champions, having used Orn's hammer to enhance the power of his weapon with the divine flame of the Forge God, making it even harder for them to block and dodge his attacks. "We need to save him now," the man said before he turned his head to the woman and asked her, "You ready?" She nodded and the two stepped forward, allowing Rias and everyone else to see the words written vertically down the back of the man's Haori. "Yondaime, Hokage." The collie grunted in pain as she was knocked onto her back, skidding on the ground for a bit before she stabbed her kunai down, and managed to stop herself just in time to see Rost appearing above her, his burning scythe raised above his head, as the Darkin went for the killing strike. It never came, however, and the tip of his scythe stopped just a few inches from the collie's face, as the masked woman she had noticed standing with Rias and the others earlier jumped in and grabbed Rost's wrist with both of her hands, stopping him. "Now, who?" Before he could finish asking that question, Rost's visible eye on his darkened weapon widened when he felt something coming toward him from behind, and snapped around just fast enough to shoot his hand up and catch a kunai that obviously did not belong to a collie, as it had 3 prongs instead of 1. The kunai also had strange wording written on the handle, but before Rost could properly read it, using Naruto's memories of the language, the masked man appeared before him in a flash of yellow, and kicked him in the head, just as the woman shot forward and punched him in the gut. While the kick stunned him for a brief second, Rost could have sworn he felt his entire stomach was caved in, his ribcage cracked, and his body shook in pain, as the masked woman drove her foot further into his abdomen, before he was sent backwards faster than a bullet, before catching himself and regaining his balance. Bringing his burning darkened scythe behind him, Rost lunged at the two with the full intention to kill, having realized that they both posed more threat to him than the others combined. The Darkin swung and swiped his scythe, but unlike how it had been with the collie, who had resorted to dodging, the two seemingly had little trouble parrying and blocking his strikes, no matter how much power he put into them. Sparks flew between them as they began to push him back, before the man reached behind his cloak and took out several kunai just like the one who was wielding before throwing them at Rost. Thinking nothing of it, the Darkin simply hit the kunai away with the blade of his scythe, but just when he was about to make his next move, the man once again disappeared and reappeared beside him, slamming a glowing and spinning blue orb into his side, that then exploded violently and launched him away in a vortex of wind. Growling in frustration, Rost forced his body to turn around in midair, and swiped his scythe, dispersing the vortex before trying to regain his balance. Before he could do that, a water dragon slammed into him, swallowing him whole before crashing him through the wall. "Whoa!" The collie gasped in amazement, being one of a few people in the area who could see that the two masked people were fighting at the highest level of skills. Moreover, the fact that they were wielding kunai, and the woman had performed a series of hand seals to summon that water dragon, was clear proof that they were more or less ninja with unnatural power like her former master, Shen. "Come on, Akali," Ari said as she ran past her, "let's help them get our summoner back." Nodding, the rogue assassin picked up her kame and followed the 9-tailed Gamiho, throwing smoke bombs at Rost's face, and generating dark smoke that, when combined with Evelyn's shadow, allowed high-mobility fighters like them to attack Rost, without giving him the chance for counterattack. Kaisa, who picked herself out of the crater Rost had sent her into with a full-powered punch using Vi's Hexic Gauntlet, opened her wings and bombarded the Darkin with a swarm of plasma missiles, forcing him to take a defensive position against the full-on assault of all 6 of them. "Gar, you annoying people, why wouldn't you just stand still and die?" Rost roared in annoyance as he swiped his scythe, then unleashed the full might of his Darkin power, forcing the KDA back, but not the two masked ninja, who used their wind and water bullet ninjutsu to return the favor, knocking him left and right. Ari, who had gathered enough power to transform again, leaped into the air in her 9-tailed fox form and curved into a bull, unleashing her blazing foxfire from every inch of her body, before throwing herself down, and slamming into Rost like a blue meteor, making him roar in pain, and crashing down in an explosion with a shockwave so strong everyone across the game field could feel it. Taking her chance while Rost had yet to pick himself up, Akali threw her kame at the scythe, securing a firm grip around it, before pulling back as hard as she could. She would have succeeded if Rost wasn't so much physically stronger than she was, immediately losing her balance and almost falling over when he pulled his arm back. "Kaneko-chan." Ria shouted to Haruka, she and every single member of her peerage, except for Ashia and Zenobia, who was watching over her unconscious friend, ran to Akali and grabbed onto the chain of her kama to help her pull the Darkin side out of Ross's hand. Before he could do anything to respond to this, Ari slammed into him from behind, knocking the Darkin down and wrapping her tails around his limbs and torso before biting onto his neck, doing everything she could to hold him down, even as he struggled violently against her hold. With another angry roar, Ross summoned Yone's Azukana blade and tried to stab Ari with it, but Evelyn and Kaisa stopped him from doing so, the former of whom wrapping her lashers around his wrists and stabbing the tip into his flesh, further immobilizing him. The single visible eye of Rost on his weapon spun wildly as he desperately held onto his weapon, that was slowly slipping away with the combined strength of Akali and the devils, trying to figure out a way to break himself out of this situation. For the first time ever, Ross panicked. His dark energy began to pick up, but just before he could unleash it in an explosion that would blow them all away, a set of glowing white chains shot out of the masked woman's body and wrapped themselves around his body, seemingly sealing away his power and serving to pin him down even harder. In a flash of yellow, her companion appeared above him and slammed both of his hands down Ross's chest, after he had gone through a series of hand seals, causing the area to glow brightly, before the masked man began to slowly push his arms into the Darkin's chest, ignoring the wave of dark energy that flowed violently out of the place. "Now, everyone!" The man shouted suddenly as he began to pull himself back while slowly but surely dragging an unconscious Naruto out with him, struggling as Ross's body tried to suck him back in. Still, Riaz and her peerage were joyful at the sight, which gave them the strength to pull even harder than ever. Ari, who saw the masked woman nodding her head to her, let go of Ross's neck and shot forward to bite onto the wrist of the hand holding onto his weapon, sinking her fangs into his flesh, and causing the Darkin to roar in pain, before finally opening his palm, causing his scythe to be flung into the air, due to the combined strength of Akali, Riaz and her peerage, before dropping beside them. The flow of energy coming out of Ross's chest came to a sudden stop, allowing the masked man to throw himself back and pull Naruto out finally, falling on the ground while holding the young man in his arms. No, not like this. Ross shouted in anger and frustration as he watched his pseudo-body began to disperse, trying desperately to crawl back to it, but there was nothing that he could do as a weapon. Not so scary now, aren't you? As Riaz and her peerage rushed over to Naruto's side in tear, Evelyn suddenly appeared above Rost and stepped on him with her left heel, grinding into the flesh near his eye, as she smiled dangerously down at him. "Hello there. Can we talk about it, please?" The darkened weapon asked nervously as he gazed at Evelyn's heel, which was drawn closer and closer to his eyes. "You know, I have a hot date with Daidara Asterth." The demoness ignored his request and continued in a sweet tone, as her lashers swung violently behind her, "But I am sure that I can make some time for you. After all, I still don't know if a weapon can feel pain or not." She then raised her heel above Ross's eye, which was spinning wildly in panic. "Oh, by the way, it's personal. Arg. Please don't mind me." Evelyn giggled playfully while waving her hand, as Ross's scream caused the Gremory group and her fellow champions to turn their heads toward her. They then turned their attention back to Naruto when he began to stir, and realized that the two masked people weren't with them anymore. "I think Evelyn recognized us," the woman stated after taking off her mask and climbing into her room through the window, to avoid being seen by the tenants of her house with her husband, who did the same before a twin poof of smoke turned their hair colors back to normal, with the man having spiky blonde hair, and the woman with long, flowing red hair. "I told you changing our hair colors wasn't going to be enough, Minato." It appeared so. Minato chuckled softly as he took off his cloak and looked at his wife, Kushina, "But at least we saved Ashia-chan and our son. If it causes us our identities, then it's a small price we have to pay. The two of them are safe now and that's all that matters." The red-haired woman nodded her head with a small smile, breathing out a sigh of relief that she didn't know she had been holding. "Also, I don't think she's that sure about us just yet, so she won't tell Naruto and his friends. It's fine though. It's almost time we tell our son the truth anyway. I know. It's just, even if she doesn't tell them right away, that lewd demon is just not going to stop bugging the two of us to confirm her suspicion now. I can just feel it." Kushina scoffed as she put her hands on her hips, her hair moving wildly behind her, while Minato could only laugh nervously in response. "It's bad enough that she spends the majority of her daily life here in our home, trying to corrupt Naruto-kun and the girls, especially Ashia-chan, even with Grafia-san being there to watch her. I don't know if I can keep it if she turns her attention to us instead. That woman has no shame. She fought to save our son, Kushina. She might be a bit off, but there are goods in her. Minato stated with a smile, though he was unsure of his choice of words to describe Evelyn. Our son saw it in her, and that's why he took her in and let her live with us. Don't you remember she shielded you from the explosion when that fallen angel attacked our house? Humph. One of the only good things she had ever done around here. Kushina huffed as she crossed her arms on her chest, making Minato chuckle in amusement. Come on, let's change before Naruto and his friends return. I have a feeling that they will bring him home after everything that happened. I see. So that's what happened. Naruto said, nodding his head in understanding as he stared down at his hands. The blonde was currently in his room, sitting on his bed while being surrounded by Rias, his friends and champions, including Sona, who had taken some time off from work, so that she could help take care of him. It had been a week since the battle against the all-Demon King faction of the Chaos Brigade, but the Gremory group and their friends had yet to be able to return to their normal daily life, mostly because they were all worried about Naruto, who had been unconscious the entire time. Having only woken up an hour ago, he had completely missed the sport festival, though the blonde heard that Momo had filled in his place and won the three-legged race with Ashia. Their training wasn't for nothing after all. Surziches, Michael and Azazel were also present as well via communication magic circle, and the three had been filling them in with what had been happening after the incidents. With the help of the Norse gods led by Odin, the Alliance had triumphed over their enemies, and the surviving servants and members of the old Demon King faction had all been captured and imprisoned for interrogations, which were being carried out by none other than Evelyn herself. After a short discussion with the other leaders and Grafia, who had vouched for Evelyn in his stead, Surziches had allowed the demonists to join the Alliance's newly formed intelligence unit, and since Evelyn was a demon who specialized and took great pleasure in tortures, it did not take it long for her to be recognized for her efficiency, as she was capable of making even the toughest prisoners talk by just spending a few sweet minutes with them. Within half a day, she had also raised to become the leader of the integration force, though Naruto couldn't help but have a feeling that everyone was actually just too scared of Evelyn to not let her take charge. Without a doubt, the one Evelyn had been torturing the most had been Diodora Astaroth. Even though Naruto was told that he had cowardly spilled everything he knew about Chaos Brigade, the moment Evelyn stepped into the room with that sickeningly sweet smile of hers. Those who had been there to watch the interrogation could tell how much Evelyn had actually enjoyed torturing the former high-class devil for what he had done and intended to do to Ashia, as well as the fact that he had a hand in Naruto's current condition. Evelyn had spent hours upon hours torturing Diodora in ways that even those who had lived for so long like Azazel and Michael did not know about, making him scream and cry as painfully as possible, and then ordering the healers to heal his wounds and wake him up, so she could repeat the process over and over and over and over again. Evelyn had clearly made it personal, and in all honesty, Naruto didn't mind letting her continue one bit. He had a feeling that Rias and everyone else, with the only obvious exception being Ashia, shared the same thought. Nevertheless, because of Diodora's betrayal, it appeared that the Astaroth Devil household had lost all their trusts and influences in the Devil faction. Ajuka Beelzebub, the former heir of the Devil clan, had been asked to take full responsibility for the scandal by the devils of the Great King faction, even though they wouldn't be able to do anything else to him with Surziches and the Demon King backing him up and defending him. Right now, losing Ajuka Beelzebub will be fatal for the devils and our alliance in the war against Chaos Brigade. Azazel explained he is an extraordinary inventor, the one who created the evil peace system, and set up the core concept for the brave saint, and one of the most powerful devils in the underworld. You can't simply find another one of his calibers nowadays. Surziches carried on with a small sigh. Still, the Astaroth sure has suffered some considerable damage. It will probably take some time for them to regain their political status among us. They have also served all ties with Diodora, and thus he's no longer their heir. I have yet to learn the details, but it appears that Laisha Astaroth, Ajuka's niece and the eldest child of the branch family of the Astaroth house, has been chosen to become their future leader. Laisha. Rias repeated the name, with her eyes widening in surprise. When she saw that everyone was looking at her expectantly, the crimson-haired heiress wasted no time to explain, she and I are old acquaintance. We used to hang out with each other years ago at parties for children of the 72 Pillars. She's very kind and humble, and I don't think I have ever seen her raising her voice against the servants and lower-class devils. Let's hope that she's strong enough to face the challenges ahead. It will take a lot from her to restore the Astaroth clan to its former reputation. Azazel stated, making everyone nod their head in understanding. Speaking of, with Diodora and Zephyrtal both out of the competition, we need to reconsider the Youth Devil rating game tournament as well. The organizers suggested we start over, but the fans are obviously not patient enough to wait for the battle between Riaz and Sariak Bale. Surziches pointed out, it's the most wanted match of the tournament, one that everyone, including those from other factions, wish to see no matter the cost. The match between Sona Citri and Sikvera Gairs is also highly anticipated, due to how similar the styles of the two kings are. Naruto could see that. With Sikvera and Sona Citri, it would be a match of tactics versus tactics, where the two girls would try to outsmart each other, while moving their servants around the field, taking as many objectives as possible. The match between them and Sariak, meanwhile, would be one that was all about strengths and powers. That's not to say that Sariak's peerage wasn't capable of devising and working around a strong tactics on the Devil's Rift, but they were a group known strongly for their overwhelming strength, especially that of Sariak, the current strongest youth. And Naruto. Yes, Surziches-san. Don't use Darkin weapons again. Surziches said seriously, and Naruto showed no surprise, having been expecting to hear it from Ria's brother, after the crimson-haired demon king himself had told him what had happened. They are undoubtedly powerful, but the risks of using those weapons are way too high now for you. We almost lost you when Ross took control of your body, not to mention that your life force has been greatly diminished as well by him. Right now, your lifespan is even shorter than that of an average human. Any attempt to use a Darkin weapon from now on will possibly cost you your life. Naruto stared down at his hands, hanging his head in shame as his friends looked at him sadly, knowing very well that Riaz and the girls had been crying, even though they were trying their best to not show it to him. Anyone who was familiar with League and its lore knew that Darkin weapons harvested the life force of their hosts, and when one was able to wrest absolute control of a body, the process sped up even more, eventually completely depleting the mortal's energy, condemning the Darkin to a fate of moving from host to gain a mockery of freedom. The total lifespan of a devil was approximately 10,000 years, but now, his had been reduced to less than 100, as Azazel had told him after doing a test a couple of days ago. Though, it was also the reason why they had been able to save him from Rost, for if he had had the lifespan of a normal human, he would have been taken completely over by the Darkin and lost his life, not to mention that it put an immense strain on his body. Even now, Naruto could barely feel his legs and his arms. He really had no idea if he could even walk or even use his hands properly. But for him, those weren't even the worst part of it. They all tried to convince him that it was Rost, but Naruto knew he was the one to blame for Ari, Kaisa and Akali's injuries, with Evelyn taking the worst of it, but at least she healed fast, while the other three had had to stay in the hospital for a few days to recover. Hey, cheer up, kid. It's not like you to look so down like that. Azazel suddenly said, a small grin on his face as he reminded him Kaneko can recover your lost life force with Senjutsu. Kuroka has also agreed to help with the medication, so stop looking like it's the end of the world. We are not going to let you die anytime soon. I know. Naruto nodded his head finally, glancing at Kaneko and giving her a grateful smile, when he saw the unflinching resolve in her golden eyes while looking at him. Just promise us that it will not happen again. I promise, Surziches-san. Naruto said, smiling a little as the others looked at him in relief. Well, then. I guess that will be all for now. Surziches nodded his head with a smile to Naruto before announcing. You will be informed as soon as the details of the match between you and Sariak are decided. I will also contact you as soon as I have any new news about the two ninjas who helped save Naruto-kun. An investigation is being carried out as we speak. Thank you, Winnie-sama. Ria smiled gratefully at her brother. I'll see you guys later. Got some important work to do right now. With a wave of his hand, Azazel ended the call, and his hologram disappeared. Have a good day, everyone. I will see you later. Michael also left and Surzich's image shortly disappeared after he had bid his goodbye to them. Naruto, would you like to eat anything? Riaz asked as she and everyone turned back to Naruto, but trailed off toward the end when she saw that her boyfriend had already passed out, snoring quietly as he slept while still sitting. Gently, Ari and Sona laid him down on his bed, and pulled the blanket up to cover his body, before they all took their leave from the room. He's okay now, and that's all that mattered to them. 2 weeks after the battle against the old Demon King faction of the terrorist group Chaos Brigade and Diodora Astaroth, Naruto found himself sitting in the orc clubroom, doing his homework with Ashia. He wanted to play League, and all 5 PCs in the room were available for gaming. But of course Rias would not let him play before he had caught up on 2 entire weeks worth of missed schoolwork, having had to stay at home to focus on his recovery. Even though he was doing so much better now, Naruto still had to take his medications regularly, and at least for time being, he would also have to stay away from the fighting. It's not like he wasn't ready for it, far from it even, as he had been training and working out daily to improve his condition. The doctors who had been helping him and even his friends wanted him to take things slowly, not wanting Naruto to risk it and break himself down when his body had only just finished building itself back up again, as he had been suffering the physical traumas of being taken over by a Darkin, which were worse enough to keep him bedridden and then wheelchair-ridden for an entire week and a half. As much as he wanted to show them that he was alright, Naruto did not want to make Rias and any of his friends worry again, and had decided to do as they wished. Plus, it's not like he was in a rush or anything like that. Currently, there weren't many things that required Naruto to use his offensive skill sets, beside the on and off stray devil hunting, but his champions, like Ari and Evelyn or even Sona, who had been living with them again, were more than happy to help him and Rias with them, whenever they weren't super busy. Moreover, the match against Sariark and his peerage had been postponed until Naruto had fully recovered. It had been requested by the Bale heir himself, as he wished to fight the Gremory peerage when they were at their full strengths, with Naruto being the one who he looked forward to facing the most on the battlefield. It was a respectable decision, and Naruto couldn't help but feel the same towards Sariark, knowing full well that the strongest youth devil would be the ultimate test to his bond with his champions. Naruto was confident that if he could grow even stronger than he was now, he could defeat Sariark in an all-out 1v1 fight. But just like League, the new raiding game mode was a team game, and it had never been all about defeating your enemies individually. It did not matter how many times he knocked down an opponent like Sariark, something that Naruto had no doubt would be an extremely difficult task to do. As long as his team could still secure the game's objectives, the Bale heir could still win the game, and dropping a match had never been something that the Gremory group, wanted to do, let alone a match against Sariark and his peerage of all people. So, if I remember correctly, it's almost time for the annual school trip to Kyoto for the 2nd year, right? Rias asked, while elegantly drinking the tea Keno made for her. Yes, Gucho-san. The trip will be in 2 weeks. Irina answered while beaming radiantly. As far as he was concerned, the trip was the only thing his classmates had been talking about, and the church trio had been no exception. To say that the three, especially Irina and Ashia, had been looking forward to the trip was an understatement. Zenobia had been keeping her cool, as always, but Naruto could see that she too was very excited. We also went to Kyoto last year. Akeno said as she put a bowl of biscuits down the table before Naruto, making the blonde smile at her thankfully before grabbing a bite. I went to Kinkakuji and many other places with Bucho. Rias nodded and continued her queen's words. But there are a limited number of places you can visit in just 3 days and 4 nights. You should think about making a plan beforehand and following through on it. If you don't include time for eating and for sightseeing, you'll definitely regret it. You will move from one place to another using mainly buses and trains, but a lot of time will be wasted if you move around on those vehicles. Thanks, Rias. I will make sure to keep that in mind. Naruto grinned at his girlfriend, making her beam at him. It was a shame that we didn't think it through about transport time. Akeno then explained with a giggle, hiding her smile behind her hand as she looked at her best friend. Bucho wanted to go everywhere. She was so excited, so we ran out of time to go to Nijuju Garden, which we had planned to see last. She was literally bouncing on her feet at the train station. Mu, you promised me you would keep this between us, remember? Rias asked, pouting a bit as her cheeks reddened. I was so excited. You know me. I love Japan, and it was Kyoto, which I admired so much, so I was hooked on the souvenir shops more than necessary. I mean, we have teleportation magic, why don't you? No, Naruto, you don't understand. Rias stopped him before he could finish asking the question, before she went on to explain to him with her eyes sparkling in excitement. Using magic circles to travel to a place like Kyoto is tasteless. I wouldn't do something like that. It felt so much better to be able to walk there on my own feet and feel the wind with my own skin, you know. As I said. She was very excited. Akeno told him with a soft laugh, making Naruto chuckle at his girlfriend in amusement. Seeing the way her boyfriend and everyone else were looking at her, Rias coughed into her hand and decided to change the subject. Ahem, the trip is important, but we also need to discuss what we are going to do for the school festival. Ah, that's right. The school festival is also close. Akeno nodded her head in confirmation. Our school doesn't have much break time between the sports festival, the school trip, and the school festival, so they all take place very close to each other. Yes, that's why we now need to discuss the school festival and prepare for it as well. Ria said as she then received a sheet of paper from Akeno. She would need to write down their plan on the sheet and submit it to the student council later. If we decide it now, the rest of us third year and first year members can prepare while you are gone. There are so many members this year, so we shouldn't have too much problem with the preparation. I sure have transferred to Kuo at a good time. Irina chirped before striking a praying pose with her hands clasping together. This must have been Michael-sama's guidance. I like these school events. The sport festival was awesome, so I will be looking forward to the next two, Zenobia said with a nod. She was as impassive as ever, but her eyes were glowing the same way Irina's were. She had been excited for the sport festival too, having taken first places in every sport that she participated in. What did you guys do for last year anyway? Naruto asked curiously. We hosted a haunted house. Kiba answered with a small smile. It was very successful, and the house became the talk of everyone for the next couple of months. Yeah, we did use real ghosts, so it was actually very scary. Rias nodded, making Naruto and those who did not know pale slightly. Oh really? Naruto asked, chuckling nervously. They were yokai, actually. Rias assured him with a soft laugh. They are the types who don't harm humans. These yokai were also in trouble because they didn't have a job, so asking for their help was good for both sides. It was thanks to them that our haunted house was a huge success. Still, after the festival ended, we were reprimanded by the student council. Akeno informed them while giggling softly. Sonakaichu, who at that time was the vice president, yelled at us, saying that we broke the rules for using the real things. Are we going to do another haunted house this year, Ryusama? Ravel asked. I don't know, honestly. I want to stick to something simple but impactful, but at the same time, I want to try something new too. Ria said, tapping her chin thoughtfully before an idea came to her mind after taking a glance at her boyfriend. How about? Just before Rias was about to announce her idea to her club, Rose Swice entered the room with a serious look on her face, with Azazel following closely behind her. The fallen angel chemistry teacher advisor of the occult research club looked as laid back as ever, but the meaningful smile on his face showed that something was about to happen. Guys, we are going to have a guess. The governor of Grigori informed them, but before anyone could ask him about it, the magic circle in the corner of the clubroom suddenly lit up, and from there an extremely tall and muscular man appeared, with short-cropped blonde hair and neatly trimmed beard, looking to be in his 30s. His clothing was fairly simple, consisting of a blank electric blue shirt, worn under a leather jacket, and dark blue jeans. He was holding in his hand a closed umbrella, and although it looked perfectly normal, anyone in the room could sense a tremendous amount of power coming from it, the like of which Naruto had only felt once before during the Battle of Reykjavik, when he struck down Cao Cao with his own spear and Thunder God Orn's hammer. After it had been empowered by Thor's divine lightning. Hello there, everyone. The man greeted them with a wide but friendly grin, which seemed to spread across his face from one ear to another. Sorry to drop by unannounced. Thor-sama. Rose Swice bowed respectfully to the man, confirming Naruto's suspicion of him being the Norse god of thunder and lightning, as they all looked at him in shock and amazement, raising from their seats to properly and politely greet Thor. They had all met Odin, but the chief deity of Norse mythology was a pervert old man, and despite his ridiculous strength that he had showcased when he helped them in the fight against Kao's brigade, his personality made it hard for them, especially Naruto, to give him even an ounce of respect. His son, Thor, on the other hand, was an entirely different story. Please, raise your heads. There's no need for you to bow. Thor smiled at the former Valkyrie and everyone else when they tried to follow her example, giving them a nod of acknowledgement before he looked directly at Naruto. What's up, Naruto Uzumaki? Been wanting to meet you ever since you pulled that lightning hammer trick in Reykjavik. Love that one, by the way. The Norse god of thunder praised, gesturing to Naruto with his umbrella, which then crackled with electricity. It didn't take a genius to figure out that the umbrella was Mjolnir. After that, it did not take it long for the Norse god of thunder to settle down, sitting on the couch across from Rias and Naruto as they sat with each other, facing him while the rest of the club took their seats on the chairs around the clubroom. Would you like to drink some tea, Thor-sama? Akeno offered after she had put down 2 cups of green tea before Rias and Naruto. Thank you, my dear, but I don't drink tea. Thor declined with a shake of his head, smiling at Akeno before noticing Rose Swice walking over to him with a mug of beer. Ah yes, always so thoughtful. Really make me wonder why the old man fired you, Rosie. Odin-sama has his reasons, Thor-sama. Rose Swice replied as he handed the mug over to Thor, who took it from the former Valkyrie, and drank half of the drink in one go. While she did not show it and she appeared to be content with her life as a devil and her high paycheck right now, it was quite clear to everyone that Rose Swice had yet to get over the fact that she was left behind by her former boss. Either way, I am glad that you have found a new home among these folks. I know you will do well with them. Thor nodded his head at her, before turning his attention back to Naruto and Rias, specifically the former. So anyway, I'm glad that we have finally had the chance to meet Naruto Uzumaki and friends. Been hearing a lot about you guys as well. Only good things, I hope. Naruto jokingly said. Both good and bad things. I mean, your unique skills allow you to summon some really beautiful and talented girls to our world. Thor answered, obviously referring to Sona and the KDA, me. I have never been an investor in the music industry, so I don't think too much of it, but you can imagine words of jealousy and curses that specifically targeted you have been thrown around there and there, even in Asgard. Yeah, I can imagine that. Naruto snickered. During his stay in the underworld, he had met jealous fans who wanted him dead because of how close he was to Sona and the KDA. Having left his mailbox in Ravel's care, Naruto had not checked it for a while now, knowing that if there was anything important his manager would immediately inform him. But the blonde did not need to ask her to know that his inbox was filled with spams and hate mails from his champion's fans, the crazier ones at least. His ability to summon his champions made almost everyone believe that he also had full control over them, and therefore he could get them to do whatever he wanted, making their admirers think that he was living the dream with the girls, while they could only gaze upon them from afar. Sure, he had been having that kind of sexual relationship with Evelyn, but it was an entirely different story, and he would never force his champions to do something that they did not want to do, just because he could. So anyway, I heard about what happened from the old man. Thor then continued, maintaining a light and casual tone. I also heard you turn yourself into a big monster with razor-sharp teeth, glowing red eyes, wielding scythe like a Grim Reaper. What do you call it again, Darren? Darkin. It's Darkin. Corrupted God Warriors, yes. Naruto nodded his head in confirmation. I did some research. Been thinking about trying out League 2, but my friends who had played it advised me otherwise. Yeah. It's best that you stay away from the game. Naruto chuckled. You can enjoy everything else that it provides. Just make sure that you prepare yourselves for it if you really want to play the game, mentally and physically. Ha! Sounds like a challenge. I do love a challenge. Thor proudly declared, holding his mug in the air like a warrior celebrating, or mentally preparing himself to go to war. Knowing how League was almost better than anyone else in the room, Thor might as well go to war the moment he queued up. Speaking of challenges, I do look forward to facing against Sarier Bale. The lad is one of the most impressive youngsters the world has seen in a couple hundred years. His individual strength is something that even us gods speak highly about when we talk about you folks, so I can't wait to see someone of his generation finally giving him his first defeat. It won't be easy though. I never said it would be, but it will be the reason the match is going to be so fun to watch. Thor chuckled before he finished his drink and put the empty mug down the table to stand up, with the Gremory group doing the same. I guess that will be all. Focus on your recovery for the time being, Naruto Uzumaki. I will be looking forward to seeing you back in action. Thank you. Naruto grinned and took Thor's hand when he offered it to him. As he had expected, the Norse god of thunder had an insanely strong grip, even though he did not look like he was trying to squeeze his hand at all. Take care of yourself, Rosie. Thor smiled at Rose twice before he walked toward the magic circle in the room, and pointed his umbrella at it, making the circle lit up and changing its patterns to that of the Norse deities. Let's meet again in the near future, everyone. Take care. And with that, Thor left, teleporting away using the magic circle, and allowing the orc to return to their daily club activities after school. Not knowing that they would be meeting the Norse god a lot sooner than expected. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.